Hey guys, Pope Sano here, back with another video. Today, I want to cover some Worlds jungling content. There was a pretty huge mistake that took place in the C9 vs Mad Lions game, and I really want to talk about this because even though these guys are some of the best players in the world, you can still learn from their mistakes as well as the things they do great. In this case, I can't really avoid spoilers, so if you want to see that game, go ahead and watch it and then come back. You see, jungle is a matter of seconds, and seconds are a matter of power and a matter of gold in League of Legends. The thing about that is, junglers then need to make decisions that are not necessarily high risk and high reward, because if you put all your eggs into one basket, you can really put yourself in trouble, specifically if you actually ruin your own pathing. We see some of that happen here in the C9 vs Mad Lions game, and I really want to show you guys this because I feel like it's very, very instructive and very, I guess, prescriptive, indicative, maybe you could say, of how I see a lot of lower elo jungle games playing out. Alright, let's get right into it. Okay, let's start by giving some context as to what is going on here. C9 Blabber is playing Taliyah, whereas Elioya for Mad Lions is playing Jarvan 4. Now, what this matchup indicates is that Jarvan is on a bit of a timer to make something happen if possible, because Taliyah does scale very well and she'll get to the point where she can farm her camps very, very quickly. Okay, let's pause here quickly and just identify what both junglers know so far. First of all, they saw each other topside, and now that Mad Lions is deciding to invade Taliyah's bottom side to get vision to understand where she's going to start, both junglers start to head down here, because at this point, C9 does not really want to give up their bot side because Blabber playing Taliyah against Jarvan is likely not going to be able to invade to take back that red later. Now that camps have spawned, both junglers leashless start at their bottom side, and you can see Cassante wards the top river because C9 doesn't actually know where J4 started his camp, and on the flip side, Mad Lions does know that Taliyah has started at her red buff.
Now, this ward is really important. You know why? Because it sees Taliyah, right? It doesn't just tell you that she starts there, but if she runs up, she's going Raptors clear. If she goes down, she's going Krugs clear.
But this is where the mistake comes in.
We have seen Cassante matchups actually work out relatively well against some of these mages, especially the skill shot based ones, if you can use your dash effectively to get out of the way of things. And Elioya is going to bring the flag down. Blabber wastes no time flashing out of the way of that one.
As you can see, Elioya tries to cheese Blabber by hiding in the bush, knowing his pathing from red to Krugs to Raptors, and trying to cut him off with his EQ combo. But what's the problem here? Unfortunately, here the Jarvan commits a bit of a sin of jungling that we need to avoid at all costs. That is kind of what I mentioned earlier, the eggs in one basket strategy, you could say. Really, the high risk, high reward plays, where they're not even really that high percentage. As you can see here, what happens realistically if the Jarvan combo does land? Well, Taliyah probably gets chunked a little bit more because she would take an extra auto attack or two, but overall she would trade back onto the Jarvan and also still have the flash to get away. Regardless, Jarvan 4's really best case scenario here is that he chunks out Taliyah and maybe she can't clear as healthily, but overall he can't stay anyway because there would be help from C9. So now let's ask what the worst case scenario for Jarvan 4 is in this case. Well, I guess the worst case scenario would be that he invades and somehow accidentally dives the enemy fountain and just dies, but you know, being realistic here, I guess, we're not too far off of the worst case scenario. He only got Taliyah's flash, and now he's set himself on a timer where he and his team need to do something to punish that, otherwise he's fallen so far behind in jungle tempo, it's not even funny. That's just it. The tempo loss here for this very low percentage play and this high risk, high reward type playstyle has actually put himself so far behind that it's almost irreparable. Yes, it is the tempo, but it's also the gold, and it's the XP that we'll see really stack up later into something that they can't overcome. I think LS says it really well.
So they get flash out of Blabber, and in exchange, Elioya is down massively in jungle clear.
Of course, it doesn't take a pro analyst or something like that to recognize just how far behind the Jarvan 4 is. At this point in time, he's now down 2 full jungle camps, and it's only going to get worse. because ultimately he doesn't have top prio, and at this point in time he does not have mid prio. That also means if his red buff is warded and he shows up level 2, then he could easily get collapsed on and die. He needs to actually conceal where he's at and go towards his Krugs first, which actually slows him down even further. To add insult to injury, Elyoya realizes that he's in danger of also losing his bot side camps if he doesn't path back towards that way, because Taliyah has so much tempo on him, and so he must path down to his wolves and then his Gromp, which again loses even more time because he's crossing back over the entire jungle the way he's already come from. Really, Taliyah gets a nice natural path from her Krugs, now towards her top lane, and then back down double scuttling. And even if you can't totally see how far behind Jarvan 4 is off of his own choice to invade, look at this.
Blabber is so far ahead, man. What? Lost chapter on his reset. Wow. He is so far ahead in jungle. This is ungodly.
You see, in the jungle, we always need to be making decisions that don't put the onus on us to need to make something happen under a time constriction. That is what Jarvan 4 did to himself in this game through that invade. I mean, think about it. A pro player literally handed Taliyah her first major power spike of the game just through trying to make something fancy happen and forcing an error that didn't need to be made at all. This is another example of what I'm talking about from a gold platinum elo game. And finish his red buff and head towards a bit of a fight in the bot lane. He tries to overforce this and ends up losing his flash after he fails his combo. Now, the major issue here is the fact that Ivern has a bit of a slow start because he needs to apply his passive to all the camps, and he's now given Ivern a free full clear. As you can see, now that Jarvan has made his way towards his third camp, Ivern is effectively full clearing using his passive all the way down. Really, that was Ivern's most vulnerable part of the game, and Jarvan did not identify that, instead going for something very low percentage. Now, as Jarvan is moving towards his top side, Ivern is done effectively every single camp. He is down massively in tempo, and now also doesn't have his flash. He's going to need to make something very special happen in this game to turn it around. Let me share with you 3 basic concepts to think about as you start to approach this idea a little bit more in your games. The first is resource levels. Health, mana, experience. If you have more than your opponent, then it's probably a good fight or something you should at least consider. That's also probably the most obvious one, but the second one shares ability priority. In this case, you're thinking about how your champion's abilities interact with both your allies and your enemies depending on who is going to be in that play. For example, in what I just showed you, J4 trying to jump into both a Caitlyn and a Morgana means he also is going to lose in auto attacks, but also the spells that are going to be thrown at him. Caitlyn Q, Morgana Q, and Jarvan traveling in a straight line. Really, you need to think about all of this, because it's not only the spells, but also the damage that they do. Jarvan will simply take way too much damage at level 2 if he's getting hit by a Caitlyn Q and a Morgana Q. The final thing to consider is power spikes and damage levels. This is kind of tied into ability priority, but here we're also thinking about things like level spikes and items as well. Obviously, something like a level 3 Kassadin versus that level 9 or level 11 or especially level 16 Kassadin. Again, this sounds obvious, but it requires thinking proactively throughout the game, tracking enemy items, and understanding power spikes of all the champions in your game. I think this is also a lesson to say that League of Legends is complex, and pro players and low elo players alike are all going to make mistakes, so don't be too hard on yourself. If you enjoyed this type of video, leave a like and a sub, it helps me grow. And let me know if you want to see more breakdowns of Worlds games like this. Alright, have a great day. Pope out.